to accept that. All right. Good afternoon. Hello, bonjour, gwe, atelahai. Welcome to everyone for joining our Entrepreneur Coffee Break. I'm excited about this coffee break for a couple of reasons. It was a topic suggested by someone who was interested in the topic. I'm also excited because it's Small Business Week. So happy Small Business Week to everyone. For everyone that is a business owner, that supports a business owner, that frequents a small business. It's been an exciting week so far. I was traveling the first couple days, so I've missed a couple things on the go. However, I've been hitting the ground running, connecting with folks this week. So hopefully you've had the chance to do the same. So I want to welcome you all. So a little bit of a background. There's a couple folks that are new to the coffee break that haven't either joined us in a while or haven't been on before. This virtual coffee break started as a pilot in January 2020 with Navigate Small Business. We ran it for 3 months. We were going to pilot it January, February, March of 2020. Everyone knows exactly what happened in March of 2020. So we have continued. And so basically come January, we are going to be entering into our 6th year of virtual coffee breaks. So I couldn't do this without you. This is your community. This is your interest in coming to these events that really motivates me to continue to offer it. So I'm going to ask you to make your way to chat, say hello, pop in your contact information if you wish to. Maybe tell me where you're joining from today, because that's always one of the quirky things that I like to know. I know from some of the folks that I do know that we are out in Stephenville, we are in St. John's, we are in Cormac, and we're in my beautiful community of Pasadena. And I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that Pasadena is on the ancient lands of the Beothuk, and that we do have 5 Indigenous populations in our province. And I ask you to think about where you're joining us from and the lands that you're on, and that they would most likely represent the Beothuk, the Mi'kmaq, the Innu, the Inuit, and the Southern Labrador Inuit. And of course, we have many other Indigenous populations across the country as well. So on that note, welcome everyone. This is very informal. Lynn's going to be having a chat with us. We're gonna look at a presentation. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get her to share her presentation. But other than that, it's pretty informal. If you need to leave, don't worry, pop off. We understand that other commitments are there. We're just happy that you've been able to pop in and say hi. So Lynn, in a matter of time, I'm asking folks to introduce and chat if you're able to see that. I did send you a list of some of the folks. We've got some new folks joining as well. Do you want to try to see if you can share your presentation?
Sure.
I made you a presenter, so hopefully that works.
Can you see my presentation?
Yep, I can.
Alrighty.
All right. So Lynn, maybe tell folks a little bit about who you are and why I've asked you to come along.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, Carol, for inviting me. This is, I think, the second time that I've spoken at your virtual coffee break. I think the other one was specifically for not-for-profit organizations.
Yes.
Excuse me. I'm always happy to help out where I can. So my name is Lynn Kendall. I'm a chartered professional accountant. I teach in the business administration program at Grenfell Campus, which is where I'm coming to you from today, in between classes at the moment. I am also a small business owner. My husband and I own a few small businesses. We own Stairs Distribution, which has been operating in Newfoundland and Labrador for about 150 years, but we only bought it in 2006. So it's changed a few hands over the years, and it's a wholesale distribution corporation. We also, in 2019, we opened Appalachian Chalets and RV. And if anybody's familiar with the area of Corner Brook, we opened the chalets and redeveloped the RV park on what used to be a water park there several years ago. And then in 2020, we 6 months after a pandemic, we decided to open a restaurant there. So both of those are still in operation. And in 2 years ago, we purchased another tourism business in Woody Point Seaside Suites, which has some very nice suites, as well as a deli and a gift shop. So in addition to my job here at Grenfell, our businesses, I do like to get to speak to the entrepreneurship community about things, especially relating to financial management, cash flow management, because it's been my experience that there's often a lot of questions, sometimes some confusion, and a lot of times some anxiety around managing the finances in your business. So I'm always happy to help out where I can. And I just want to say thank you to Carol again for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
So do you want me to just begin?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. All righty. All right. So Carol specifically asked me to talk about cash flow management. And I believe you were at a session that I did in June at the Center for Research and Innovation during one of the business wings sessions. And I believe you had one of your frequent guests or participants here in your online entrepreneurship coffee breaks to perhaps have a little bit of a conversation about cash flow. And I guess that may have triggered your memory that I had done something similar a few months ago. So happy to be here. And I am going to talk about cash flow today because, in my opinion, it's one of the most critical aspects of managing a business, any business, regardless if it's a small business or a large corporation or multinational corporation. Cash flow is critical to any organization. It might be a not-for-profit, for-profit, a side gig. But if you don't have sufficient cash to meet your financial obligations, then it's going to be terribly difficult for your business to continue. So first of all, just to answer the simple question of what is cash flow, and very simply, it's just the movement of money in and out of your business. So just think about from your personal perspective as well. You've got your personal cash flow. So you may have a job, you may be an entrepreneur as a side gig, or it may be your full-time income source. You may have some investments. You may have some savings that you tap into. So all of these would be money that's coming into you personally. And then, of course, things like mortgage, groceries, utilities, car payments, insurance, daycare. The list seems to be endless of the money that goes out of your personal lives. And same thing in business. So cash flow comes into a business and then we pay it out in some form or fashion, depending on what our obligations for the business are. So then we ask, why is managing cash flow important? And first of all, for survival. As I said a few moments ago, if we don't have that as sufficient cash flow to meet your obligations, you're not going to be in business much longer because creditors will start demanding payment, and there are legal ramifications for not making some payments. You may have bank loans, you may have credit cards, you may have accounts payable, suppliers, you may have employees that you owe money to. So if you don't have sufficient cash to pay those obligations, again, the survival of your business is at risk. We also need to manage our cash flow for growth. You might be doing fantastic, you're doing exceptionally well, and you feel now is the time to expand, whether that's to get into new products, new services, or to open in a new branch in your location, or a new branch in another location. Or maybe you've done really well with this business. Now I'm going to try something different. So it's a different business altogether. But in order to grow any business, you're going to need some financial capital. You're going to need some cash to invest in, whether it's physical assets, marketing assets, just some of that operational stuff that you need to open up another or expand your existing business. And decision making. All right, so now you've got some cash. Maybe you have a storefront that really needs some sprucing up. So it needs maybe some new doors and windows, a paint job, maybe some furniture in the reception area. So maybe that might be a decision. Or you may want to say, well, I've got this outstanding loan that I've been paying down for the last 3 years. I'd like to make a lump sum payment on that so the monthly payments are lower. So you've got some decisions to make as to what to do with your cash. And those decisions, we all know that there are infinite ways that we can spend money, whether personally or from a business perspective. So making those decisions, the smart decisions that work best for you and your business, is going to be important. Why managing cash flow is important. And Carol, if you see, I don't have the chat box open, but if you see anybody has any questions, and by all means, if you have a question, just pop in, and I'm more than happy to take any questions throughout the presentation.
Yep, will do, Lynn.
Thank
I
you.
was just thinking when you said, why is cash flow important? And you had all your reasons. One of the things is to help my husband keep calm, because when he sees that balance dropping, he starts to freak out.
That's right. That's right. It reduces the anxiety.
That's right.
So from a business perspective, where does cash come from? Oops. So one is from our sales revenue. So that's our day-to-day operations. So you may own a gift shop. You may own a spa. You may own a cafe. So that income of cash comes from the selling of your product or your service on a regular basis. That's your sales revenue. You may also borrow money in the form of a loan from a bank or from a family, friend. You may borrow money from several different sources, or you may arrange a line of credit with the bank. So a line of credit is different from it's similar to a loan in the sense it's borrowing. However, it differs in the sense that it's kind of like a credit card in that you only pay interest on what you borrow from the line of credit. So you may go get a loan, say you're getting a loan from CBDC for $25,000 to start up your business. So then you're paying on that loan on a regular basis. You may then arrange a line of credit for $15,000, and you may only borrow $1,500 from the line of credit. And in doing so, you're only going to pay interest on the $1,500, not the full $15,000. So you do still have to pay, and it still is interest bearing. However, it's you only have to pay interest and make principal payments on what you borrowed, but you have the capacity to borrow more if you need it. Sometimes you may be in a business where there's grants or subsidies available, whether it's a federal or provincial type of grant that specifically helps your sector, your type of business. You may have some type of subsidy. You may be a member of a particular group, such as maybe you're Indigenous and you can get a subsidy from Ulnaweg. Or there are programs and services, again, offered by governments and other organizations, non-governmental organizations that can help businesses as well. Or you may have investment. So whether it's not necessarily your investment, but you may have investment from somebody who's interested in owning a part of your business. So whenever I'm talking about investment financing in my classes, I always ask the students, have you ever watched the show Dragon's Den or Shark Tank? It's the US version. And you see that there are the sharks or the dragons, however we want to call them, they will offer to invest for a certain percentage of ownership of a business if they like the business idea. So if you're willing to give up a part of ownership of your business for the sake of some financial investment, then that's a form of cash flow coming in, and in exchange, you will sell a part ownership in your business. And it's a frequent and very often used form of managing cash flow is to seek investment. So where does our cash go? And of course, it seems like it can be an endless number of ways that our cash is going. Our cash is going somewhere every single day, whether it's personally or from a business perspective. So we've got our operating expenses. So we talked about sales revenue as a source of cash coming in. Well, operating expenses are the expenditures or the costs of doing that business, of earning that revenue. So it could be rent, could be salaries. It might be the inventory that you sold in the form of cost of goods sold. Could be vehicle expenses if you have a vehicle in your business. Could be travel if you do a bit of travel for your business. So all these things, that the expenses that you have to incur in order to earn that sales revenue, that's operating expenses. As opposed to capital expenditures, so these are those hard assets that you need to buy. So for example, you may need a vehicle, or you may need a warehouse space, or you may need a computer, a photocopier for your office. So all these things are capital expenditures. So they're kind of one-time payments, but they're meant to last over an extended period of time. Whereas an operating expense, your cell phone is a monthly expense, but the capital is of the nature that you're planning to use it over several years, at least 2 years, typically. So money will also go in the form of loan repayments. So we talked about borrowing money as a source of cash inflow. Well, we also need to pay back those loans, whether it's credit cards, or it's a line of credit or a loan. They need to be repaid, and that's going to be a source of cash. Typically, we're going to pay the repayments in form of interest and or principal payments. And taxes and payroll remittances. Businesses will, if you make over the required amount to collect HST, which without getting too much into the HST rules, if you earn more than $30,000 a year and you have you're selling a taxable product or service, then you should be registering for HST and charging HST to your customers or clients. So you're collecting the tax, but you're collecting it on behalf of the government. It is not yours to keep. So your bank account might be looking nice because it's increasing, but some of that money we collected was actually HST that needs to be paid to the government on our regular reporting cycle. And that can be whether it's monthly reporting, quarterly, or annually filing, depending on how your HST account is set up. If you are an HST filer, you do need to make allowances that that cash is there. It's not yours to use. It has to be paid to the government. And same thing with payroll remittances. If you do your own payroll, we all know I'm assuming most of us have had a job here, you get your gross salary, but then what you actually take home can be significantly or at least somewhat less than what our gross salary is. And in that regard, your employer has withheld certain deductions. So they may be, certainly we have the mandatory deductions of Canada Pension Plan, employment insurance, and income tax, but it may also be life insurance, health insurance, membership fees, union dues. So there may be any number of things. So if you are an employer and you're doing your own payroll for your employees, you're giving the employees the net amount every 2 weeks or every week or how often your payroll is. So you're withholding the payroll deductions But again, they're not your deductions to keep. They belong to the government as well. So on a regular basis, you need to be remitting your payroll remittances to the appropriate governing authority. So those are the broader categories of where our cash is going to go from a business perspective. I hear this one a lot. I'm showing a profit. My net income is positive, but I have hardly any cash. Where's all the cash going? Why is this not working out for me? One of the biggest issues is timing of payments. So if you allow accounts receivable, meaning that you allow customers or clients to pay on account, so you incur the expenses to earn the revenue. But if you've given customers 30 days to pay, then you've got obligations to pay right now, be it payroll, your rent, your vehicle payments, your other loan payments. But you're giving customers 30 days. So there's a little lag behind when you're collecting the cash from your from your customers. Inventory, absolutely. Inventory can cost money, a lot of money. So we think about what we're actually buying that's on our shelves, in our stores, in our warehouses, if you have a warehouse. So it's a lot of money tied up in inventory. Now, of course, the purpose of buying inventory is to sell it at a higher price than what you pay for it. So at some point, you're hoping to sell that inventory. But sometimes it can be, that can take a little bit of time as well. So like the receipt of payments from your customers, the earning of revenue from your inventory can take a little bit of time as well. But you've already paid for the inventory, so that cash has gone out. You're just waiting now for somebody to buy it so the cash can come back to you. And loan payments, especially those principal payments. So the principal payments do not show up on your income statement as an expense. They're shown as a reduction in the liability of your loan. But the fact that the interest portion is an expense, which shows on your income statement, but that's maybe a smaller portion. The principal amount may be more. So my loan payment is only showing maybe $200 a month in interest, but I might be actually be paying $2,200 because $2,000 might be the principal amount. So not everything that all your expenses may not necessarily show up on your income statement as an expense. There are other ways that our cash is consumed. I'm just going to stop for a quick second, see if anybody has any questions before I move on.
Nothing in chat, but if anyone wants to jump in.
Do people in the group have like a separate bank account that you keep HST in so that it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind? Any routines that you have on that would be helpful.
I've heard of a lot of people say that they've done that. And I think it's always been in my perspective, like if you struggle with keeping an eye on that and understanding that you still owe the government this much money, then I think that's really a good recommendation to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's something that many, especially when they're first starting up and they want to be extremely diligent with managing cash flow. I know this money is not mine. I'm collecting it on behalf of the government. So I'm just going to put it over here in a separate bank account. And just so that I don't have ready access to it. So when I look at my main bank account, I know exactly that this is my money, nothing that I owe to the government. One thing I do caution people, though, when you're opening another bank account is that there's always fees associated from the banks, right? They're always going to be charging you fees. So be careful of the cost. So if you're going to have a bank account for HST, a bank account for remittances, maybe a bank account for savings, then all those monthly costs will add up at some point.
Yeah,
but
personal
no,
income taxes too. Lynn, if you're a sole proprietor, technically everything that you're bringing in is your personal income that you're going to be taxed on. So you may want to start cutting aside some of that cash flow for your personal income tax so that you don't faint in February when you run your taxes.
That's right. So if you are self-employed and you're not incorporated, then the money you earn less your expenses. So any profit that you make during the year is taxed to you on a personal basis. So as a result, then that you will have to pay tax on that. And as Carol said, putting that money aside is a good idea as well. Again, if something that you struggle with. So I think in every session I've done on cash flow management, that question always comes up. Should I put the money for the government in a separate account? So what can I do to monitor my cash flow? Here are some tips that I recommend. One is to check your bank accounts every day. Sometimes you might be afraid to check it, so you kind of go in with your eyes see no evil. But if you don't look at it every day, then you don't know what your financial position is, your cash position is. So even if it may not look all that pretty, it's still something that you do need. It's your responsibility to keep an eye on it, because you may have a loan payment coming out in a couple of days, and if you don't have the cash to cover it, well, then maybe I need to take a little bit of money out of my savings, or maybe need to borrow money from somewhere else in order to meet those short-term obligations, because maybe right now it's a little bit slow, but I'm expecting things to pick up before Christmas and whatnot. But check it every day, even though it might give you a little bit of anxiety. And really understand the timing of your payments and your receipts. So when your payments are due and when you typically receive your payments. So maybe if you deal mostly in cash or credit card, for example, maybe you're like a cafe or a gift shop, then that would be very, very low accounts receivable, meaning that the majority of your customers are going to pay at the time of purchase. So maybe the weekends are busier for you, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So come Monday morning, you would have a big deposit in your bank account. But Monday and Tuesdays are pretty slow, so I don't expect to have much cash coming in on those days. But late as the week carries on, business picks up. So understand the timing of your payments and your receipts. So when are our busiest days? When are my automated payments coming out? When are my loan payments due? When is HST and payroll remittances due? When is payroll? You don't want to miss making a payment to your employees, because then that's an indicator to your employees that you're not necessarily a reliable employer, and that can cause them anxiety and cause them to go look for a job elsewhere. So payroll is always of critical importance if you have employees that you're paying. Your historical bank statements, you can go back through months and years worth of data right at your fingertips to see what the pattern of when are our busiest days, or when are our slowest days, when are my loan payments due. And all those things can be verified from your bank statements. If anybody is using a point of sale system, so if you have a retail type of business and you're using a point of sale system like Square or Clover or Touch Bistro or something like that, then they have some great reports built in that they can tell you, they can give you highlights. What are your busiest days? What are your busiest times during the day? What are your most popular items that you're selling? So there's a lot of really good information from there that can help you understand your business more, and that can then translate into helping monitor your cash flow.
I think that's really important to understand that ups and downs, Lynn. I know, just thinking of a time when I had a client that I was about to invoice, and I looked at it and it was like June 28th, which I knew HST was going to be due like within, for the end of that quarter. And I'm looking at the cash going, by the time I get paid for this, I'm probably not going to get paid for a couple months. I don't know that I have the cash to carry that HST to remit. So I waited till July 2nd to bill them, because it actually gave me a full other quarter to be able to get the receipt in to put that flow through HST out, right? So I think being on top of some of those things is really critical.
For sure. Absolutely. As an accountant, I'm just bred to use spreadsheets and to adore spreadsheets. So cash, a spreadsheet type of thing, or putting things on paper. You can buy some budgeting software. So if whatever means you're comfortable with, and it might be just pen and paper, a notebook. Just keep those notes, keep track of those notes that of knowing when, okay, it's now October, what's today, October 24th? Oh, October 25th, I've got my loan payment coming out. So I've got to make sure that there's enough money in there to meet tomorrow's obligations. And I know that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are good shopping days for me. So I'm going to have some money coming in. So come Monday, I'm going to have deposits, whether it's in cash or credit card and debit deposits. So again, knowing your business intimately well in that regard was going to be incredibly helpful. And if you are inclined to use spreadsheets, then here's something that I've developed that just simply helps you organize your sources of income, sources of cash, and then the cashes that are going out as well. And then that will help develop your total cash flow by each month. It's very simple. And if you're familiar with from spreadsheets, you will have no problem developing something like this yourself. So some tips for managing cash flow. I can't stress this one enough. Pay close attention. Don't ignore it, even though you know your bank account may not look very pretty right now, or you may be so busy that you don't have time for the finances. I'm going to tell you, if you don't make time for finances, you're going to be forced to deal with some unpleasant situations when customer or suppliers are looking for the payments, when governments or loan creditors are looking for their repayments. So paying close attention on a regular basis will be, it might be uncomfortable, it might be exhausting if it's not something that you particularly like doing, but you're going to be forced to into some uncomfortable situations if you don't. Speed up your accounts receivable. So if you are a type of business where you do invoice your customers or your clients, and then they have 30 days or so to pay you, try to tighten that up a bit. Try to encourage people or your customers to pay you sooner rather than later. So if that means offering maybe an early payment discount, if they pay in 10 days, you give them maybe a 1% discount or something like that. Or you can do as what Carol said. She knew, if it was a sizable invoice, she's got to pay the HST on that in a couple of days. So I'm going to hold off on it, and I can carry that revenue for a couple of days, and then it makes cash flowing the HST that I owe to the government a little bit better. So the sooner you can get paid for those accounts, the better. And then stretch out your payables. Take as long as you can that you're allowed according to the agreements you have established with your suppliers or to make your payables. So you don't necessarily have to feel, oh, the phone bill came in, I got to pay that right away. No, you do have a grace period where you can make those payments. So if you don't have the cash right now, but again, you know that you've got some big contracts coming up that you're going to have some cash flow coming in the next couple of weeks, then okay, I can stretch out the phone bill for another week or so and still pay within that period where I'm not going to be confronted with a late fee. So look at the timing of when things are due for all your expenses. If you deal with cash and checks regularly, deposit as quickly and as soon as you can. There's no need. It's not doing you any good to you to just have it in a bag or in a drawer in an envelope somewhere. Have them deposited as quickly as you can, where it's actually in the bank account. Maybe your bank account can pay a little bit of interest, but at least it gives you less anxiety when you check your bank account balance every day, as I recommended. So that when you look at your bank account, you see that the money is actually there. And because maybe you don't think, oh, I've got $5,000 in an envelope in my office drawer that I haven't deposited yet. Speaking of deposits, there's no harm in asking a customer or a client for a deposit. So if you're doing a big piece of work for a customer, whether you are, say you're a crafter and somebody has asked you to make 10 quilts for them. Now, quilts can be expensive because they're time consuming, they're works of art, they're highly valued. If somebody wants you to make 10, you don't want to go ahead and make 10 custom quilts only for them to say, yeah, no, I'm not interested now. You've got these 10 quilts now that you've got to try to unload. Maybe you've forsaken other jobs to make those quilts. Same thing for when we had new kitchen cabinets built. The first thing we had to do when we signed off on the design was write a check for 50% of the cost of the cabinets. There's no harm and no shame for asking for a deposit when you are doing, especially if it's custom work. That will be very difficult for you to sell to somebody else if they decide not to take it. Recently, for one of our businesses, earlier this year, we had some graphic art done. And we've developed a really good relationship with this graphic artist now, but back earlier in the year, we just met each other. He didn't know anything about us. So he said, and he was a little bit uncomfortable, but maybe saying, I do kind of ask for a deposit, a 50% deposit when, and for a first time customer. Absolutely. Understand completely. Glad to hear you've got those good cash flow management techniques. So by all means, there's no shame or no harm in asking for a deposit.
Can I jump in there too, Lynn?
Sorry?
Can I jump in on that one a little bit?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Certainly, this is actually how this conversation came up in a meeting because I was sharing that tip with someone and they're like, I never even thought of that. But if you're also, and 50% is my rule too, 50% upfront, and then, upon submission of whatever I'm providing, and it's been accepted and signed off, then you get the balance. But the other thing that I've used with some clients who they may not have the cash flow is, 25% after this milestone, and then 25% after another milestone, and 25% after another milestone, or something like that, they can see as natural that, yes, you've completed this particular phase of that project. So they're willing to pay for that too. So it doesn't always have to be huge amounts, but significant that, like you say, with the quilts, if they're going to pay 50%, they're not going to walk away from 10 quilts if they put a good chunk of money down, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. For sure. Consider your hours of operation. If you're opening on days, we own a restaurant, Mondays are not that busy. So during the summer, we're open 7 days a week because it's we are in Cornerbrook as a tourism destination. We're typically busy all 7 days of the week during the summer. But as we move into the fall, we see that Mondays are not that busy, so we close on Mondays now, just for the sake of why have staff sitting around when they're not busy? It's costing us money when we've only got a few guests in that day. So, consider those. If Sunday is a really good day for you, it's better to be open on a Sunday and close on a Monday if that schedule is ideal for in terms of your cash flow, especially if you're paying staff to be there and it's not that busy. So if you have a point of sale system that can give you a good report on when your peak periods are, when your best days are, what are your worst days, what are your best times of day, what are your worst times of day, or maybe shorten your hours of operation. If lunchtimes are really busy because I work near a government office and people come over for soup and sandwich every day, but I'm not really busy at dinner time on Mondays and Tuesdays. So maybe you close at 4 or 5. If you, excuse me, if the peak shopping hours are actually after work, not in the mornings, not in the afternoons during the week, but in the evenings. So if you have a retail store and you're closing at 5 o'clock and people are finishing work at 5 o'clock, you are missing out on peak shopping hours. So maybe you don't open until 10:30, 11 o'clock. Don't open it at 8 o'clock or 8:30. Shift your hours so that you can stay open for a couple of hours after typical work office hours and have people come in at that during that time when they're on their way home or they're going out with friends and they're going to pop in. That would be a better situation. So think about your hours of operation and are they working for you from a financial perspective? And be smart about inventory purchases. As a gift shop owner is amazing. You want to buy everything and put in your gift shop. We only have so much space in our business in Woody Point, so we have to be smart about that, but also smart about cash flow. So this time of year, we're getting things are getting slow in Gross Mourne, so we don't see as many tourists and visitors as we do, like say during June, July, and August when we're at peak capacity and things are super busy in Gross Mourne. So we want to do our inventory purchases before we get before our busy season and do less throughout the year. However, having said that, you may get discounts this time of year if you're buying now. So that's what you need to be smart about it. Like, should I really be just not buying anything right now and wait until March and April to place my orders? That way they're here before May 24th weekend when the tourists start to come back again. Again, every one of you are going to have a unique situation when it comes to that. So consider when's the best timing about your inventory purchases. And also, maybe you don't need to buy everything all at once. Maybe you buy certain items or a smaller number of items in let's say in March, and then in June you buy more again, and then maybe you buy a little bit more in September for the few tourists or guests or Christmas season that's coming about. So you can break it up like that throughout the year rather than having to buy all your inventory at one time and having all that money paid out up front before you're making any sales from your guests or your customers. And watch your credit card purchases. So in our businesses, we have corporate credit cards. So we very rarely use our personal credit cards for business purposes because we have credit cards for the business. And so when we have to buy things for the business, we use our business credit card. And then the arrangement with the bank is that on a specific day of the month, we're going to take the full amount that's owed on the credit card. So everything that's owed, regardless of what's in your bank account, what else is coming out. So some of you may say, well, I can only pay half the balance this month or a little bit on the balance. So with the arrangement that we have with our bank is that it all comes out, the full balance, not the minimum balance, the full balance. So watch that payment as well. So you may not notice what's on your credit card until you actually go in and look and see that these are the purchases that we made. That payment is coming out next month. So I have to make sure that the money is in there for our credit card purchases. If you like using your personal credit card to pay for your business purpose purchases, then make sure you keep that separate. You keep a good records of what's business expenses and what was personal expenses. And how am I going to pay for the business expenses? Does the business have the money to pay it, or am I going to have to pay it personally? So those are things you need to keep in mind when you're using credit cards for business expenses. And lastly, don't forget about that HST and the payroll remittances. Bank account may look kind of nice now because things are all that HST and the remittances that we deducted from our employees are in our bank account right now. We are not remembering as soon as we look at the bank account. Oh, I forgot. This is the end of October is coming. I'm going to have to pay my September HST bill very soon. So keep that in mind as well. Anybody have any questions?
Excellent. Thank you, Lynn. If anyone has questions, you can pop them in chat. You can open up your mic, shout them out.
Oh, hi, it's Glennis Bott.
Hi,
Hi,
Glennis.
Glennis.
Hi, Lynn. And a couple other people there that I know. Um, I'm a CPA as well, and I really enjoyed listening to your presentation, Lynn.
Oh,
A
thank you.
couple of things that I would like to mention. I know you mentioned the credit card. Being in private practice, and I've only been in practice. I've been a CPA for as long as Lynn, but
Yeah.
in private practice a couple of years. When it comes to the credit card, a lot of people want to use their personal credit cards that I see, and it just is makes a real mess if you don't really keep track of it. So
Mhm.
I always, and it's easier to not remember that you made a purchase for your business if you put it on your personal credit card, and then you don't get reimbursed.
Mhm.
So I always encourage small businesses to have a separate credit card, even if you don't, for some reason, you don't want a corporate one or you can't get a corporate one. Have a separate personal one only for business, and it also makes it very easy for you or your bookkeeper or your accountant to know you've picked up on every receipt, because you can balance out the statement and make sure you have everything on there rather than mixing it up with personal. Um, and another thing that I was thinking of near the beginning when we were talking about bank accounts, I do see people have that separate bank account. The people who just find it for the CRA remittances, the GST that you owe them, the payroll that you owe them, or even if you owe them corporate tax installments, because once you're in business for a while, if you're taxable, if you make profit, the government's going to want installments through the year for your current year as well. And I have seen the separate bank account, so that's a good idea. But one thing I would also mention that isn't obvious to some small business owners: have a separate business bank account in the first place, because some small business owners, especially when they start out, don't even realize you should have a separate bank account to operate your business out of, separate from personal banking. So I just thought I'd put that
Absolutely.
in there, even though it's pretty basic, especially new people or people with sole proprietorships who it's just your personal income, really. It's just called business income. They don't realize you really need a separate bank account for your business. So that was just another little thing to point out. And my last point that I want to point out, that I had someone approach me a little while ago. They got themselves into a real state with cash flow because they well, it actually happened a while back, and it snowballed from COVID. It was a service industry business that was really impacted by COVID, and they got really behind in bill payments, really behind with cash flow, but kept the business operating, and really owed CRA quite a lot of money for both payroll and HST. CRA can come and empty your bank account if you don't communicate with them. So what was happening, I think the owner was a little afraid to, when the CRA phone call would come, or the owner was just swamped and really busy and just wasn't answering phone calls, wasn't communicating. So CRA emptied the bank account. So just for cash flow purposes, it's a good thing to know that. And all I can really tell people is make sure you make your CRA payment. Make sure you make all your payments. But the CRA money you have is in no way your own money. It was someone else's money that you took that belongs to the government. It never ever belonged to you. It just went into your bank account. And like I said, the CRA can just empty a bank account of whatever's in there. So just keep communicating with them, and they will really go, from what I've experienced, they'll really try to help you with a payment plan. So, but just keep in mind, and also keep in mind that if you say are part owner of a business, if you have partners, or even if you're on a board of a not-for-profit, you can be personally responsible for CRA cash required to pay CRA. So anyway, that's my little spiel, a few things that popped into my head while Lynn was giving her excellent presentation.
Thank you, Glennis. I was just going to comment on the CRA piece. Rather than let them clean your account, contact them and tell them you need help, because you're right. Often they'll work out payment arrangements, and as long as you can keep up with those, they'll work with you. Absolutely. Katya.
For sure. Thank you, Glennis. Those some really good points.
Hi, that was a great presentation, Lynn. My question is around, I guess, setting up your business. My business is new, and I'm struggling to figure out how exactly to set up my whole system. Like, I feel like if I had a system, I could work within it, but I don't have a system. I don't have a mind for money. Like, I do graphic design, so I I don't even know who to go to help set me up. I don't know if you have any advice around that. Like, is that something that you, or maybe is that something that you would do, Glennis? I need help getting set up so I don't end up in a bad situation. And I just don't know. Like, I think I'm okay set up as a sole proprietor, but I don't really know if that's right. Can you speak to that?
That's a very, very common issue among entrepreneurs, is that they don't know how to. No, you're not expected to know. I mean, why would you know how to set up a computerized accounting system? I mean, that's a specialized piece of knowledge.
Yeah.
So typically, accountants can help you with that. So, Glennis, is that something that's part of your scope of work, or do you have somebody that you are aware of that can offer assistance to people?
No, absolutely. That's what I love to do first and foremost, is start with, I love starting with new business. But the one thing as an accountant, I don't let you ignore everything until the end of the year and throw a box of stuff at me. I make you work with me through the year. But that's what I absolutely love, even more than anything, is a new business and helping them start out and understand things and make a little part of them an accountant. Even if you don't like accounting, you to work with me, I make you understand a few things.
I really like being organized, and I feel so disorganized when the finances are just like, it's like this horrible explosion that makes me really anxious. And what I've been doing now, just for invoicing, I mean, that's all really that I'm trying to pop in some expenses, but for invoicing, I'm using that Wave accounting system. I don't know if that's something that you guys use or are familiar with, or is that ridiculous system to be using? Is it professional? I don't know.
Well, I have used it, especially, for instance, I'm involved with the small not-for-profit, just the recreation committee here in my town, in York Harbor, Lark Harbor, and it's great because we don't pay anything for the very simplest of version. You don't pay anything, so it's great for a very small, simple not-for-profit. But yeah, I'm absolutely familiar. But maybe what we can do, maybe you can, I can get Carol to send you my contact information or something like that, and then we can speak. That'd be lovely.
Yeah,
Yep, I'll definitely do
my
that for you,
chat isn't
ladies.
working, so I couldn't. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Carol.
Not a problem.
Perfect. Thank you for
So
answering.
looking at the time, just want to make sure we have a few minutes to wrap up. Are there any other questions specific for Lynn? All right. So again, I want to thank Lynn for jumping in, and thank everyone for shifting for our time. It actually worked out better for Small Business Week schedule to offer in the afternoon anyway, because there was another coffee break this morning in person in Corner Brook, and I know Stephenville has a lot of things on the go as well. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to attend. Certainly support small business, be proud of being a small business owner. And thank you to all of those on the call that support us as business owners. Without your wraparound services and supports and cheerleading and letting us cry on your shoulders and all of that stuff, we need all of that as well. And certainly, wish you all the best success. I'm going to give you back a couple minutes of the day. My husband always says, did you give everybody back time of their day? So I'll give you back 3 minutes of your day. Thank you so much for joining us today. Stay tuned. I haven't planned November's coffee break yet because I'm traveling a bit in November. So trying to figure out the right time. But certainly we'll be looking for another coffee break. And I'll be putting the recording out later today when it's processed. So feel free to share it and review it. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Lynn, as always. Fantastic presentation. And have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye, Lynn. Bye, everyone.